good morning. Welcome to a Hunter, oh, y'all can see it, Hunter edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Vantage Clinic, Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Restored Motions, RestoredMotions.com. If you need an orthopedist, good Brock, need a roof, call Hudco. You have pain, book a session at Restored Motions with Crystal Poche. All right, y'all. Last day before Thanksgiving. Hope your day is off to a wonderful start so far. College football playoff rankings came out last night. LSU up to number 5. So I thought they would get jumped by USC yesterday, as they did in the coaches and AP polls. But again, the committee has the luxury of saying, we could put LSU there now, because if they lose to Georgia, just move them out. And such is life with the committee and the rankings as they are with this 14 playoff. So I know we've mentioned a bunch, but the monkey wrench for this whole thing is, of course, LSU. If LSU does in fact beat Georgia, that's a giant problem for the committee if everybody else wins out. Obviously, Michigan and Ohio State, one of them will lose, but theoretically, what this sets up is LSU at number 5 isn't necessarily the most interesting topic, but one thing is for certain: either Michigan or Ohio State will lose this week. So, and here's what I think is very likely to happen, okay? I think, let's say Georgia beats Georgia Tech, which I think we all assume they will. Let's say Ohio State beats Michigan. TCU wins. LSU, Southern Cal, Alabama, Clemson all win. Everybody moves it. Okay. I think if Ohio State beats Michigan, Michigan will fall to 6. I think TCU goes to 3, LSU goes to 4, Southern Cal goes to 5, Michigan 6. Then do you go keep Bama, Clemson 7, 8, or does Clemson lead Bama? That's only interesting potentially for the following week. But the reason that they could put LSU in is because then LSU and Georgia have the same scenario the next year, where LSU, the next week, LSU and Georgia would play, of course, and should LSU lose, they drop out, and then Southern Cal goes in, which makes the most sense, right? The problem that they have is, what if LSU wins? And that is a conundrum. That will be a conundrum for the playoffs should it arise. But anyway, you can see why it's laid out the way it is, and see what happens with games this weekend. All right, let's say some good mornings. Y'all know the drill. Fire away. Questions, comments, concerns. Tiger basketball team won yesterday against Akron. So they're the Cayman Classic. So LSU 2-0 there in the Cayman Classic. And so they will play Kansas State today. LSU is actually a slight favorite over Kansas State. It's a virtual pick'em, but LSU is a 1-point favorite over K-State. So Tigers 5-0, Wildcats 5-0. That's a 6:30 p.m. tip-off tonight, Central Time, for the Champions Classic championship game. So got a little LSU hoops tonight. Okay. Here we go. Let's say some good mornings. Get to your questions, comments, concerns, all that good stuff. Truax, what's good? Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Blaine Smith, good morning. Happy early Thanksgiving to you and your family. Quentin Breakville, good morning from Northern Arkansas. Okay. Matt Green, good morning. Hunter Eilers, good morning. Do you think we beat K-State tonight? I can't tell you that I know a darn thing about K-State. I barely know anything about LSU basketball right now. I mean, the way that my season always goes is, as you all well know, it's really hard for me to pay attention to to basketball until football's over. So, I mean, I can look at Kansas State's record, who they've beaten. They also played Kansas City, team that LSU beat in their opener, the Ruse. They beat Cal, they beat Nevada yesterday in overtime in that Cayman Classic. But I can't tell you know anything about them. I'm not going to lie to you. You know the one thing I do know about them? Here's the one thing I know about them. This is the one thing I know about Kansas State. They got Keontae Johnson. That's the one thing I know. If you don't know who Keontae Johnson is, Keontae Johnson played at Florida, and he's the guy who collapsed on the floor in the game against Florida State a couple of years ago. And, I mean, he almost died. It was terrifying. University of Florida would never clear him to return. And so Kansas State did. Like, his doctors said, yeah, you can go play again. So, but Florida would never clear him, so he transferred to Kansas State. So, and remember, Keontae Johnson that year was preseason SEC Player of the Year. When he collapsed, it was early in the season. It was obviously a non-conference game against Florida State when he collapsed. I want to say it was in December. It's been a couple of years, if you remember that story. So he's at Kansas State. That's the one thing I know. That's the one thing I know about Kansas State. All right. Sorry, y'all. You know how it goes in the morning during this time of year. It's just all drainage, automatic nasal. So my apologies that you all are listening to that. Todd Harris, Kelly Gross, good morning. Aiden Cruz, good morning, Matt. What do you think about Kiffin Auburn? And if not Kiffin, who do you think Auburn hires? I think, Aiden, and I want to be very clear before I answer this question. I have no inside info. I am not pursuing information from Auburn or Ole Miss sources. I have no idea what Lane Kiffin is planning to do, what will happen, any of that stuff. I have no idea. I saw the report like everybody did. And then Lane Kiffin's denial. Apparently a fake Twitter account yesterday put out something about Lane Kiffin meeting the team saying that he's staying, and apparently it's a fake Twitter account. So there's all kind of stuff out there. My thought is that Lane Kiffin is not going to Auburn. I think we see this a lot where you've got one guy who's maybe a smokescreen for someone else. So who would that be? Maybe Matt Rule. Maybe somebody else really cool. I don't know. But my guess is that Lane Kiffin is not going to Auburn. I do think he would leave Ole Miss. I don't know that he would leave Ole Miss for that job, which Auburn is a better job than Ole Miss, but I think Lane would be able to get an even better job than Auburn. Stephen Jacobs, good morning. Larry Garner, Jason H. Good morning, Matt, my Robin Williams voice. Good morning, Vietnam. Tim Gotro, Trivia Carter, Cliff Nelson, good morning. Hashtag Team Drew. Joseph Feltwell, good morning. Are you eating at home or a family member's house? Hopefully you enjoy time with your family. Thank you, Joseph. We split the day, so we go to my side of the family early, and then we go to Erica's side. So my cousin Mark hosts our whole family. He's got a beautiful, big farmland in, Springfield. So we'll head there for 11, have lunch, and then probably around 2 or so leave there, go to Erica's family's, and then, veg out there and probably eat leftovers and stuff like that for dinner. Rendell Aufrecht. Good morning. I think no one is talking about is if LSU does beat Georgia, we would likely have to play Georgia again in the playoff. So I disagree, Randall. I think LSU and Georgia would end up 3-4 in that scenario. I think you would have number 1, Ohio State, number 2, TCU, likely 3, Georgia, 4, LSU. And so they wouldn't play unless they both made the national championship game. I think you'd have Georgia, TCU in one semi, and LSU, Ohio State in the other. Let's see. Alex Lightworker. Let's go with it. Keep rolling. Okay. Marcus Washington. Good morning. Brian Penton. Good morning from Reading, PA. Kyle Milliken. If LSU loses, could they be out of the top 4? I'm sorry. If Michigan loses, could they be out of the top 4 in LSU? And does LSU need style points against the Maggies? No, I don't believe they need style points, Kyle. I do believe Michigan. I kind of explained this when we started. Let's say Ohio State beats Michigan and everybody else in the top 5 wins. I think everybody moves up, meaning LSU moves in. And I think Michigan would fall from 3 to 6 behind LSU and Southern Cal. So LSU would be 4, Southern Cal would be 5, and then Michigan 6. And the reason the committee could do that without fear now or concern is LSU plays Georgia. So if LSU were to lose to Georgia, no worries. LSU loses to Georgia, Southern Cal wins, Ohio State wins Big 10, TCU wins Big 12. Boom, SC goes in at 4 and you're set. The problem, the potential monkey wrench is LSU beating Georgia, which throws everything on its head. Or like TCU losing or something like that, which would then, I don't know that it flips everything on its head, that just opens up a spot, say, for Southern Cal. Weston Weaver, good morning, Brad David. With Jimbo struggling so bad, does that make Scott Woodward look bad since he hired him? Maybe in the minds to some, but I think Scott's got a proven track record, right? When you look at the hires he's made in multiple places. Hunter Broadhead, good morning. Joey Vincent, Wendell Norman, Brant Roban, good morning. Looks like things are setting nicely for LSU. Greg T, Otterlocks, Maction, 2-0 last night. Otter was, in fact, 2-0 last night. Ooh, Greg bet them individually and parlayed them. Okay, nice night for Greg. JT10, morning, Matt. I feel better going into the A&M game and Georgia games, knowing Jaden Daniel was sick with the flu for the Arkansas game. I think our defense will keep us close, but we need Jade to be locked in. Yes, I agree. Wally, 33. Good to see Johnson back on the court. He leads Kansas State scoring currently. Yeah, he's a great player, man. He's a phenomenal player. Reed Rule, morning, Scone. Happy Turkey Day. What would have been the drink of choice tomorrow if you were drinking? Reed Rule, I will likely have an old fashioned tomorrow. So, we always do family like old fashions on holidays. So when we get to my cousin's house, it'll be like pre-made old fashioned, like not pre-made, but like it would have already, the drink would have been mixed. You just wouldn't have an ice block yet. So you just ice, stir, roll. I'll probably have one tomorrow. One old fashioned. Cliff Nelson, did LSU basketball keep the formula for scheduling the General Wade used? Or did that leave with him? Always worked for LSU's RPI, getting in the tournament. So Cliff, they use the net ranking now, but essentially the same premise, right? It's just the mathematical formula that that they use sort of to associate the power rankings. So coaches get to put their schedule together. So it's LSU basketball doesn't keep the form. It's not like you have someone who handles scheduling like in football. You have Verge who does football scheduling, but the coach puts together the schedule. So to answer your question, no, Matt McMahon put together the schedule, and I don't think he put together the schedule with the idea of, hey, let's do something that's going to look really good for the net ranking down the road. When Will had the program rolling, he knew he wasn't going to get these big net ranking opponents, meaning LSU's not going to play, Gonzaga's not going to schedule LSU, Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, Villanova. Like, those programs aren't scheduling LSU. Those programs schedule each other in Kentucky and other blue bloods, right? They want to play those marquee preseason games. Even look yesterday, Maui Classic, you saw, or the Maui Invitational, you saw Arkansas and Creighton, top 10 matchup. So LSU is just not good enough for teams to schedule them, right? So if you're LSU and you're trying to bolster your net ranking and you're not going to get top 10, top 15 teams to schedule in the non-conference, then you have to do what Will Wade did, was, okay, what is the net ranking value? The net ranking value's 20 wins. How do you get into quad one wins? So teams that he knew were going to win 20 games in their league and that was going to would win on the road and would bump their net ranking so the win would look better for LSU, right? Even though it wasn't like a big name on the marquee. Matt McMahon, I think, will get there eventually. I think this year was, this is as soft a pre-conference schedule as I can ever remember for LSU. And Matt McMahon did that intentionally, and I don't blame him at all. All right, shout out to Brock, Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. Need orthopedics, go to Brock, Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com. Do business with someone you know. And Restored Motions, RestoredMotions.com. If you have pain, book a session with Crystal Poche. Craig Straub, glad we stayed at 5. Definitely a cluster fudge if the Tigers went out. All hail the committee after all is over, and good luck, boys. Darren Reeves, good morning. Ed Check, Ohio State or Michigan will drop out of the top 4 with only 1 loss. Absolutely. The loser of that game will drop out. Now, it's not to say they couldn't get back in if there weren't upsets, but the loser of that game will absolutely drop out. Michigan's strength of schedule is like 85 right now. It's embarrassingly low. So if Ohio State beats Michigan, for sure Michigan's out. Robbie White, good morning from Eastern Prairieville. Todd Harris is the loser of Michigan, Ohio State, eliminated from the playoffs. Not eliminated, but will be out of the rankings next week. What could potentially happen is, let's say Georgia beats LSU, TCU takes a loss, Southern Cal takes a loss, and so you have like 1-loss Michigan, whose only loss is a close game to Ohio State on the road, or a 2-loss SC, or a 1-loss TCU. Then the committee has a decision to make, right? But that's contingent on Georgia beating LSU, and then, probably one other upset happening, because otherwise you would have undefeated Georgia, undefeated Ohio State, undefeated TCU, 1-loss Pac-12 champ USC. Eddie Wicker, happy Thanksgiving, Matt. Think the Tigers throw in some new wrinkles on offense against A&M to give Georgia something else to think about. You'd have to define wrinkles. I think every week you game plan for a specific opponent. And so you have different things that you run. But if you're talking about like gadget plays and stuff, I don't know, I'd save those for Georgia. Hey, Dad, good morning. David Coslin, Blaine Smith, do you think Catholic winning state championship this year? Edna Carr is going to be tough. Yeah, I don't know, Blaine. Sure, yes, of course. Go Bears, Calicut. Carr apparently, great team, was using an ineligible player or something like that, so they had to forfeit some games. So their power ranking in the field went way down. Like this, some people have said this basically should be the state championship game with Catholic and Carr. So we'll see. Dale Broussard picked up another couple milli of GMEX on the discount yesterday. Fantastic news. Fantastic. People often say that you don't get rich in the bull market, you get rich in the bear market. It's when when you can buy on the discount. The problem is so many people leave the market. I have not left the market, I'll tell you that. And waiting on Bitcoin to get to 14K. Some say Bitcoin might get down to 12K, which that would be incredible. It's like a Black Friday crypto shopping spree. Kevin Harrell, what's going on? Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Kelly Presley. Were you surprised we moved to 5? Yeah, Kelly, I thought SC would leapfrog LSU. I did. But it makes sense if the committee can look ahead. And even though they won't say they will, they're not saying that they're doing this, but they are. They can look ahead knowing full well. It's like when TCU was originally left out, those first rankings. Well, they knew that week who was in that played. Georgia and Tennessee. That's right. Georgia and Tennessee played that week. So it's like, okay, well, you knew one of those teams was going to lose, and then Georgia beat Tennessee. Tennessee dropped out, and TCU went in. Same this week. Ohio State and Michigan are in play, so one of those teams is going to lose and drop out. So, Stuart Reithmeyer, good morning. Kirk Taylor, first Thanksgiving in Louisiana, and I can wear shorts tomorrow. Very nice. Michael Thacker, morning, Scone. I know college football playoff doesn't matter right now, but it is worrisome. The committee thinks so highly of Penn State right now, potential Orange Bowl selection. Maybe. I still don't think so. I think that ultimately what they'll do is, and so what Michael is referring to there, which is a good point, is something we've talked about a lot, right? So if LSU, so you're thinking if LSU loses to Georgia, what are the possible bowl scenarios? Well, it really depends on where LSU's ranked respective to Alabama. So LSU's at 5 right now, Bama's at 7. My opinion is that after this week, Michigan, Ohio State loser will drop. LSU will go to 4, USC will go to 5. I think Michigan, Ohio State loser goes to 6, which means it tells you that's basically Bama's ceiling is at 7. So the question is, if LSU's 4 loses to Georgia, would they drop below Alabama? And I don't think so. Like Penn State's 11 right now. If LSU wouldn't drop below Bama, I don't think they'd drop below Penn State. So really, and the most basic way that I can say this is highest ranked non-playoff team from the SEC goes Sugar. The next highest rank in this season is going to go to the Orange Bowl. So most likely you'll have LSU, Bama, and Sugar and Orange. It's just a matter of which goes where, depending on who's higher ranked in the final rankings. If LSU loses to Georgia. If LSU beats Georgia, I think they're in the playoff. With some help. Caveat. Thad Landry, let's see, Robbie White, best part of Thanksgiving is any type of dressing. The worst part is a family member going over their bad beat. Bad beat in fantasy football. Joseph Dean Strickland, by the way, I disagree, Robbie. The best part is fried turkey. Joseph Dean Strickland, the Bama homers here on the zone. Huntsville hate giving LSU credit. It's like it kills them. I don't know, man. Isn't that the station? Isn't the Zone the station that's got Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond in the morning? Drew DeArmond picked LSU second in the West behind Bama this year. So he was one of the few at media days that was like a believer, and I think he had LSU on 6-2 in the conference. So anyway. Sorry, y'all. Samuel Merrifield, Matt, do you think the Peyton coaches next year's Chargers maybe? Yeah, Chargers are the most likely, I think. If they fire Staley and Peyton lives in L.A., coaches Justin Herbert, yes. I think that's the most likely scenario, yes. Wayne Blanchard, morning, Matt. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Todd Harris, flu-hitting guys last minute can make the game Saturday more interesting than I like it. Hopefully everyone's getting healthy and go against the Aggies. Yeah, I think LSU got hit more with the flu against Arkansas. Last week was, hey, just rest some guys because you can. Let's see. Where are we? Bob Raymond, good morning. Mike the Tiger, undefeated against Kirby. Trivia Carter, better job than Auburn, besides Bama, Georgia, LSU. What are better jobs than Auburn? Doesn't necessarily have to be in the SEC. And I think you're looking at a job that has great resources as far as money to spend, fan support, and the lack of chaos that generally surrounds Auburn. I think Texas A&M's a better job. I think Texas, which of course always could come open. Let's do this. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, LSU, USC, Bama, Clemson, Oregon. You don't players in Oregon. That's the tough part. Tennessee, what and what with Auburn? Penn State. Notre Dame, Florida State, Texas. Yeah, those. It's a very good job. It's a top 15 job. But Lane Kiffin, I think, is going to be a super desirable head coach. Carter Harris, morning, Matt. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for keeping us updated with the LSU and Saints. You got it. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button, please, if you would. Thanksgiving will be better than last year. Don't have to watch the Saints lose. Oh, God, the game against Buffalo last year. Holy moly, how brutal was that? USC is about to run the Big Ten. Maybe. USC and Ohio State, I think, is interesting. Brad David, does Lane trolling on Twitter hurt his chances at a better job? Wasn't that the reason LSU did not interview him? And Twitter isn't the reason LSU didn't interview him. I think there have been a lot of stories about Lane, some personal relationships, let's call it, that maybe if you are LSU and you're hiring a football coach amid a time where your former coach is taking pictures in bed with women while simultaneously your football program is undergoing a federal Title IX investigation because of the alleged mishandling of sexual assault complaints and female staffers in the football office, it may not be the best time to hire a coach who, let's say, has a reputation for being promiscuous. Make sense? Rapid Batches, Jared Esprit, good morning. Carter Harris, I'm in Georgia for Thanksgiving. My wife's cousin says LSU is the only game that scares them. Oh, from Georgia. Well, and they're a 16-point favorite. Let's see, Brian Williams, morning, Matt. Looking forward to what does Brian Kelly do about his defensive secondary for next season? Yeah, they better go address corner on the transfer portal for sure. Kyle Milliken, Matt, do you expect the SEC to change conference structure in 23 or 24? Well, I mean, whenever Texas and Oklahoma come in, absolutely. I mean, they're not going to stick with like a 2-division structure where you stick one team in each division and then you just have a greater issue with who plays who when and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean that goes without saying they're going to change the structure when they go to 16. Joey Metke, Jonathan Martin, Cortland Jacob, Logan Elrod. Will you be having a show Thursday and Friday? No show Thursday. We will. This is AFR, by the way. Morning Scone will be here. No AFR Thursday. We are back on Friday. Jay Geiger, good morning. Thomas Devlin wanted to give you a shout out Just wanted to give a shout out to the Louisiana teams this year. Tulane and LSU both going bowling. ULL has a chance to be bowl eligible. Okay, cool. Read rule, obviously, we want to get guys from portal, but what are, if any, rumblings of some of our guys heading into the portal? Yeah, that's always going to happen. I mean, every year you're gonna lose guys to the portal. Just like you gain guys, you'll always lose guys. The exodus, I don't believe, is as vast as it was a year ago. I think you're going to lose a lot of offensive linemen. Remember I said that. Because your entire starting five is back, and you've recruited well behind them. And when you look at guys like, and I don't want to call names because I don't want you to assume I'm saying that these players are leaving, but you can look at LSU's offensive line at the veteran guys who have been around for a while, who not only are they not playing, but this year got passed up by 2 freshmen. It's fair to look at it and say, okay, maybe that guy finds somewhere else to play. Right? Like, I mean, if you just look at it, here's the candidates. Marcus Dumerville, Xavier Hill, Kimo Makaneoli. Marlon Martinez is injured because he did play center the other night, and I think he's got value. You know, what does Cardell Thomas do? They moved Fitzgerald West back to the offensive line this year to play center. You know, Cam Wire participated in senior day, so he's gone. But, you know, you've got a handful of guys that are veteran players that haven't played, that aren't going to play next year because your starting 5 is back, so do they leave. I think that's, and then similarly, if you were Brian Kelly, you have to go into the portal to get some veteran players who you think can give you good depth. Patrick Ramos, crazy to think that 3 months ago, LSU even having a shot at the college football playoff was a fantasy. True. Bayou Bengal Matt, what about the Cotton Bowl for LSU? Not possible this year. Trevor Bittner, because it's all about tie-ins, Bayou Bengal. It's all about the bowl tie-ins. And on the year where Sugar and Orange are not part of the college football playoff semifinals, that's where the SEC tie-ins would be in the New Year's Six. So LSU is either going to the playoff, the Sugar, or the Orange Bowl. Worst case scenario would have been, or could be, if, let's say, LSU loses to Georgia and they drop LSU below Bama and, say, Penn State, which I do not think will happen, by the way. But then Bama would go Sugar, Penn State would go Orange, LSU would go Citrus. That's a worst case, but I do not think that will happen. The only way that happens, and that, again, that's if LSU beats A&M and then loses to Georgia. If LSU loses to A&M and loses to Georgia, now you're staring Citrus in the face. Or possibly even like Relia Quest, former Outback Bowl. So you got to go beat A&M. Trevor Bittner, good morning from Alabama. From the Alabama Highway, headed to North Mississippi to visit family. Okay. Apollo Balboa, Matt, presuming LSU beats A&M, lose to Georgia, what bowl do you foresee? Just went through that. Either Sugar or Orange. Beat A&M, lose to Georgia. If LSU remains ranked above Bama, they go to the Sugar. If they drop below Bama, they go to the Orange. And in the Sugar, you would play Big 12, likely Kansas State. In the Orange, you would play ACC, likely Clemson, assuming Clemson's not in the playoff. Chris Baker, morning Scone. Been in Houston for 2 months working. Made sure I wore LSU gear every day to piss off the Longhorn fans. Very nice, very nice. Paul Losey, good morning. Joseph Dean Strickland, good morning. Bubba Smith, John Bro. Ben's basketball tonight against K-State. Skip, what's up, man? Could we see 3 national championships this year for LSU? Well, I don't know enough about like track and field and stuff to know if they might win one in that, or golf or tennis. Yeah, I'm assuming you're alluding to football, and I'm going to say no. Women's basketball and baseball would be the others. That would be very real possibilities. I do expect baseball to be in Omaha, and it will be a massive disappointment if they're not. I don't know if y'all saw, but Kendall Rogers from D1 Baseball went to the LSU ULL scrimmage in Lafayette 2 weekends ago and essentially declared LSU the favorite for the national championship. I'm telling you, the amount of talent this LSU team will have is absurd. So yes, they should be in Omaha and should have a great chance to win a natty. Women's basketball, I mean, yes, they should make a deep run. If you're asking about football, I'm going to say no. And just because, look, you'd have to beat Georgia. You'd have to go to the playoff and beat, very likely, Ohio State, and then Georgia again. I mean, come on. Darren Reeves, imagine the college football world if Brian Kelly goes to the championship game in year one with a transfer portal team. Crazy, it's even a possibility. That's true. Jeff, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I think LSU is going to lose to Georgia and likely go to the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State. That's what I think is the most likely scenario. I would love it if LSU beats Georgia, wins the SEC, and goes to the playoff. I can't tell you I think that happens. But crazy things happen. Jeff McKiffin, good morning. What's up, Trey Fisher? Good morning. Jeremy Sagely, Notre Dame is taking care of USC this weekend. They could. I don't really agree with you. I think it could happen. I don't think, and look, Southern Cal's defense is very bad. So the bad on bad matchup there is Southern Cal's defense against Notre Dame's offense. So does Southern Cal's defense play better against a bad offense, or does Notre Dame's offense gain some traction against a bad defense? Southern Cal right now is a 5.5 point favorite over Notre Dame. That game is in LA. Let's see. Todd Harris, how they schedule games if they eliminate divisions? The same way they schedule games for years before they had divisions. Not trying to be a smart aleck there. That's the big unknown right now. That's the unknown, Todd, is how they would maintain permanence, right? So my opinion is I think what would happen is each team would have three. This is the model that I think works the best. You'd have to go to 9 conference games. Each team would have 3 permanent opponents that they would play every year. And then you would have the other 6 opponents on your schedule would rotate year to year. So you would play 6 teams one year and then the other 6 the next year. So in a 4-year cycle, everybody would play every team home and away in the league. Patrick McKenzie need to pull for Notre Dame and Kansas State. Good. Rhett O'Quinn, if playoffs aren't an option, would love to get K-State again. Wouldn't that be something? Daniel Sinets, good morning. Patrick McKenzie, who you got in the Egg Bowl? Ole Miss. Last week was their letdown spot after Bama. They'll come out strong and win. Adam Keene, would the Saints still draft Hooker with that injury if he's there in the second round? Good question, Adam. Impossible to know for sure what their scouting report is on him. They may not even have a second round grade on him. So before the injury. So I really don't know. I can tell you that I would be perfectly fine with the Saints drafting Hendon Hooker, yes. Brian Hill, Matt, do you trade Chris Olave after the season for a top 10 quarterback or a top 10 pick? So, Brian, nobody's going to give up a top 10 pick for Chris Olave. He's been really good this year, obviously, and he's on a rookie contract. But nobody who has a top 10 pick is going to trade that pick for a receiver. So you're not getting a top 10 pick for Chris. Would I trade Chris Olave for a top 10 pick? Yes. But there is no team in the NFL that would do that. Who dat dude? What's going on? Sugar Bowl bound, Tommy Tanks. Matt, what would it take for LSU to beat Georgia? I think you'd have to get a couple of turnovers, short field. I don't think LSU would be able to just consistently drive the length of the field against Georgia. Because we just haven't seen anybody do that. Their defense is really good. So I think defensively, LSU could match up well against Georgia. Could. The question is, could the offense get going a little bit against that defense? Irfan Sayad, good morning. Trivia Carter. Honestly, I want the Kansas State rematch more than a playoff shot. Ronnie Duguy, good morning. Jared Esprit, I got a question. If LSU wins out, do you think any of the top four can beat LSU? Yeah, I think all of the top four would be. Actually, I saw this yesterday. All of the top four would be favored over LSU. TCU would be on a neutral field a 2.5-point favorite over LSU. That's not to say LSU couldn't win. I'm just saying that all of those teams would be favored over LSU. Jared Esprit, I got a question. If LSU wins out, I just did that one. Trevor Bittner, Scone, do you believe teams get in other teams' head, like demoralizing, so to speak? Yeah. Well, Alabama, LSU, when they won 8 in a row, yes. LSU against Georgia, I don't think current Georgia players are even aware that LSU and Georgia played in 18 or 19. Maybe you have some seniors on the team that were there in 19, but no. If it was something you played every year and couldn't beat, then yes. But in LSU and Georgia, no. That's more of a fan thing. Patrick Ramos, what would be your guess on our 3 permanent opponents? Yeah, I think it would be A&M and the Mississippi schools. Trivia, let's not forget Kansas State was celebrating like they beat the 2019 LSU. Right, I'm with you, Trivia. It would be very nice to pimp slap them. Deacon Alec Campbell, morning, Matt. Ames, Iowa always takes down a contender. Notre Dame has a shot. Still don't think LSU matches up against a motivated Georgia, but hey, playing with house money. I agree with all that. Spurge, good morning. Trivia, can you give my daughter Olivia a good morning shout out? What's up, Olivia? That's a beautiful name as well. Good morning, Olivia Carter. Beautiful name. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're enjoying the week off of school. And I hope you have an awesome Thanksgiving and eat lots of turkey. So tell your dad that I think he has surpassed Lenny. I can't really back that up. I'm just stirring the pot today. Trevor, Georgia looks like Superman. I believe. Hercules. If you're going to do Hercules, you got to do it with a K. Let's see. Paul Marauner, morning from OKC, Mr. Scone. Love all your shows, especially Whiskey Wine with T-Bob. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you for watching. Matt, when can portal players announce their commitment? So the portal opens on December 5th. So a lot of guys you've already seen have made they announced their intention to enter the portal, but the portal window opens December the 5th. So after SEC, so SEC Championship is on the 3rd, so Monday after SEC. All right. Kirk, can Auburn, Florida A&M be the 3 opponents? No, Kirk, that's unlikely. Yeah, I think you have. If you're trying to play that game, you have to start with what you know, right? So you start with Auburn would definitively draw Bama and Georgia. So, and Sankey's talked about this, by the way. Like the guy this is all a conversation now because of the guy last week who said it was like breaking news that Greg Sankey was, talking about getting rid of divisions. Although they've literally been talking about this since the spring. So you would have sort of like tiers, right? You'd have like the upper tier of the league and the lower tier. And no team would draw 3 opponents from the upper tier annually. So like if you're Auburn and you're playing Bama, Georgia every year, you wouldn't also draw LSU. You would draw like State or Vandy or Missouri or someone like that, right? South Carolina. So you start with what you know. Like Auburn's going to play Bama, Georgia. Bama's going to play Auburn, Tennessee. Georgia's going to play Auburn, Florida. Florida's going to have Georgia every year. So, and probably Tennessee, you know what I mean? So Tennessee would have Bama, Florida, maybe Vanderbilt, right? So you start to fill in like what are the absolute givens. Like Ole Miss and Mississippi State are playing each other every year. I think that's where you have to start, and then you sort of fill in after that. So my best guess, I remember doing this a while back, was for LSU, it would end up being A&M and the Mississippi schools, which wouldn't be bad. Which means you wouldn't play Bama and Florida and Auburn every year. You'd play them every other year. Matt, do you have any idea what the BCS rankings would be for the top 4 if the computers existed? Yeah, Robbie, there's a website where a guy still does that. He takes the formula. Here you go. It would be Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Southern Cal, LSU. So it would flip those. Bama 7, Clemson 8, Tennessee 9, Penn State 10, Oregon 11, Kansas State 12, Washington, Utah. I mean, it's very similar, right? And I do think that's part. I think we have sort of been conditioned to think a certain way about rankings, and the BCS computers reflect that. All right. Kirk, hey, losing storage series against Auburn. Yep, I'm with you, Kirk, but I don't care. I would rather play 9 really good SEC games, and let's have a real schedule and a real postseason. And you sacrifice, man. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. A&M, like the thing that everyone laughs at A&M, and I get it, but the thing I respect about A&M is they forged their own path. They said, we're tired of being in Texas's shadow. We'll give up our 100-year rivalry, which is the most important thing here, to the point where that's what our fight song is about. And we'll stop playing that game to go forge our own path and be in the SEC. I respect it. Oh, Jason H. asking for the Matt Shuffle. You know what, Jason H? Let's do it.
Someone you know, Scone and Terrio. All you need is hardcore. Call hardcore roofing. 364-1007.
Call Hudco Roofing 364-1007, or Click the HUDCO link. It's pinned right there in the chat. Just click that. I tell you, it's funny. Not funny, haha, but interesting. Our phone. So Saturday, right? Friday, Saturday, we had tons of rain. Saturday, tons of rain. Saturday, rained all day Saturday. Our phones, HUDCO's phones, blew up this week. Blew up. And they're storming the Gulf. And in November, it's Thanksgiving week, holiday week. Phones blew up this week. Why? Rain. It's as predictable as the sun rising. When it rains, our phones will ring. Why? Because when it rains, people realize, oh, I got water coming in my house. Never fails. Try to tell y'all, man, there's a better way. And by the way, I tell you all the time about fortified roofing, been telling you all about that. A fortified roof isn't going to stop wind damage. Meaning, you have a fortified roof, it's not going to stop wind from lifting a shingle or something like that. But what it will stop is water getting into the house. The fortification is below the shingle, which will prevent leaks. So even if you have wind damage to your roof, water won't get in your house, damaging wet insulation, stuff in your attic, running down your walls, cutting sheetrock, all that stuff. That's why the insurance companies love fortified roofs. That's why they give people 50% discounts on their insurance premiums if you have a fortified roof. And the only Louisiana-based fortified roofing company, HUDCO Roofing. HUDCOroofing.com. Okay, a couple of more. Chris Conroy thoughts on secondary depth next year. They better go to the portal, get cornerbacks. Spurge headed to Kyle Field for the first time Saturday. Recommendations for good hangover Sunday brunch spot. Not a ton in College Station, Spurge, but the Dixie Chicken is their super famous place where apparently they sell more beer per square foot than any other place in the country. So if you're going to do the touristy, have to hit spot, you got to hit the Dixie Chicken. Kyle Milliken, Matt, do you think Matt House could use BJ and Ali to rush the passer, use Hercules to man up on Georgia's tight ends? Maybe, but I think what you're losing there is it's never that binary. It's just not that cut and dried. And what you are seeing teams do is scheme to get Harold Perkins out of the box. They're scheming to make Harold Perkins cover receivers in the slot and things like that. Against Arkansas, there were times he was in coverage on Jaden Hazelwood. That's the risk if you're going to have him on the field. If you're going to have that third linebacker like that on the field. If we lose to Georgia, we have to drop, and Alabama's right behind us, so wouldn't we drop to the Orange Bowl? Not necessarily, Barry. Because keep in mind, after this week, LSU likely goes up again, right? So, because Ohio State and Michigan, one team will lose, so LSU will move ahead of that team. So next week, if LSU beats A&M, I fully expect next week LSU will be 4. So LSU's 4, and they play a 1, and you lose to number 1 Georgia, sure you would drop, but I think you'd probably drop to 6 and stay ahead of Bama. You have a head-to-head against Bama. You would have both been 10-2 in the regular season, and you're not going to be punished for having to play the number 1 team in the country in a neutral site game in a conference championship. Let's see. Jared Esprit, I'm dead. Were you laughing at the HUDCO jingle? What are you, new? Been doing that for like a year, man. I'll be there in Kyle Field for the Tigers. All right, Sean T. All right, I think we're done, y'all. Done. Patrick McKenzie, do you think LSU gets Desmond Ricks? Yeah, I see Shay every Tuesday also, man. We record the sports takeover for WBRZ Plus every Tuesday. I should just ask him. Yeah, I get Shay on the show. We'll do that. Okay. All right, we're done. I gotta go. I don't actually have to go. I have nothing on my schedule for today, which is nice, but also a little odd. All right, y'all, I'm going to bounce. YouTube, please smash that like button. Facebook, please like the page, share the post. As always, shout out to Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. They are the best. If you need an orthopedist, you go to Brock. If you need a roof, give us a shout at Hutco, hutcoroofing.com. And if you have pain, book a session with Crystal Poche at Restored Motions. I will drop the Restored Motions link here in the comments so you all can go directly to it to book your session. Don't live in pain. Let Crystal Poche help over at Restored Motions, restoredmotions.com. Okay, y'all have an awesome day. We'll see you tomorrow for a Thanksgiving edition of Morning Scone. Pete, see y'all for AFR3. Peace.